Good evening, everyone. This is a bit of an extra show that we hadn't got planned to do, but it's really important that we talk about, and that is that Wolves have proposed to the Premier League that VAR will be scrapped from the 2024 season. I wanted to get a cross-section of Wolves fans, different demographics, to be able to talk about this. So we've got Chelsea that's joining us, representing the ladies. How are you doing, Chelsea?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Fantastic. Great to have you joining us. We've got young Liam Berry, up-and-coming, aspiring journalist, also writer for alwayswolves.co.uk. Hi, Liam. Thanks for joining us. I think you're 17, nearly 18, correct?
Yeah, 18 soon, so I can go to the pub in about 2 months.
Fantastic. We've got Sooty, who's repping his feeler top tonight. How are you doing, Sooty?
Good evening, people.
Thank you for joining us. And we've also got cheerful Chris, a regular here on the channel, but he's also on the board of the 1877 Wolves Trust as well. And I know that VAR is something that there's been a survey done on that. First, before we get started, Chris, and how are you this evening, mate?
Good.
Looking forward to getting stuck into this. You've got loads of people in the chat. We've already got over 100 joining us, so hopefully a few more will be jumping on as it gets available as well. But let's get stuck into what this is all about. I'm going to share a news story that we've done on the Always Wolves website and go through this. So hopefully you can see that on the screen right now. This is on alwayswolves.co.uk. It basically goes on to say, for those of you that are listening on podcast, the Premier League clubs are set to vote at their annual general meeting next month on scrapping the video assistant referee VAR system from the start of next season. Obviously, VAR has been used in the English top flight since 2019, trying to help improve decision-making, but also causing persistent controversy. The 23-24 campaign has seen many contentious incidents highlighting criticism of VAR, leading some teams and fans to question the competition's integrity. Wolverhampton Wanderers, our club, have formally submitted a resolution to the Premier League calling for VAR to be scrapped this summer. This is going to be triggering a vote and a discussion when representatives of the Premier League meet at their annual general meeting on June the 6th. Wolves have stated that the move comes after careful consideration and there's no blame to be placed. They believe that the price we are paying for a small increase in accuracy is at odds with the spirit of our game, arguing VAR has caused numerous unintended negative consequences like impacting goal celebrations, frustrations due to lengthy tests, more hostile atmosphere, over-analysis of decisions, diminished accountability of officials, continued errors, disruption of fast-paced, consistent discourse overshadowing matters, and the erosion of trust and reputation. The Premier League has acknowledged the concerns but fully supports, this is from the Premier League, VAR's use and aims to make improvements like semi-automated offside technology and in-stadium announcements. Removing VAR, in their opinion, could increase run calls and damage the league's reputation amongst Europe's top divisions. Sweden, as you probably know, implemented and rejected implementing VAR after a fan backlash from clubs who are all required to have a minimum of 51%. And the Premier League clubs have a constitutional right to put forward rule changes with any proposal needing a 2/3 majority, i.e. 14-16, to pass. And there is on the screen for you to read now, and I'll leave that up for just a second, is all the major points that Wolves are citing: impact on goal celebrations, negating the passion that makes football special, frustration and confusion inside the stadium due to lengthy VAR checks and poor communication, about the hostile atmosphere with protests, booing of Premier League anthems and chants against VAR, Overreach of VAR, purpose, correct, clear and obvious mistakes. Now over analysing subjective decisions and compromising the game's fluidity and integrity. Diminished accountability of on-field decisions due to the safety net of VAR, leading to erosion of authority on the pitch. Continued errors, despite VAR, with supporters unable to accept human error after multiple views and replays, damaging the confidence in officiating standards. Disruption of the Premier League's fast-paced, lengthy VAR checks and more added time, causing matches to run excessively long. Constant discord about VAR decisions, often overshadowing the match itself and tarnishing the reputation of the league. And finally, the erosion of trust and reputation, with VAR fueling completely nonsensical allegations of corruption. Jack obviously came on here, who is a member of the Fans Advisory Board, over the last couple of weeks, of course, the week before last. And obviously one of the things from this channel and also from the wider fan base and indeed the trust was that they wanted to discuss VAR at length with the Fans Advisory Board. Jack confirmed that pretty much the board was on the same page as the fans. I think he's even gone as far as saying that even Jeff wasn't very happy with it. And it seems that obviously that's been taken notice of, all the protests in the stadium, from the trust, from various supporters groups, from various fan channels. And I, find it really interesting that today our club has put this proposal on the board. I'm going to go first of all to you, Chris. You're a member of the trust, and I will put on the board for everyone to see. This is a ticketing survey. At the top bit here is all the would the use of VAR in its current format influence your decision to attend games next season. There was 811 responses to the trust survey on this. 67.1% said yes, it would influence their decision to attend games next season. 19.4% said no, and 13.6% said yes, said unsure. Around about 80% of the survey said they either would influence or influence whether they would attend games next year or were unsure. Chris, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, that was a really strong proportion of people, Dave, and the reason was that the trust did the survey was everything Jack said about the Fan Advisory Board and Jeff Shee discussing VAR was correct. They also did discuss ticketing prices, which we wanted to get everybody's feedback for, but we wanted to make it very, very clear and give the club some feedback that it's not just about ticketing prices and the stadium and Molyneux and painting and all of that. That's really important, but people are getting so cheesed off with the way that football is now with VAR. People don't want to watch it. We saw the video that you did with your dad, and
I'll put
we
that
don't want
in a minute.
And we don't want people paying their good money, their hard-earned money, to go and see something they love and falling out of love with it, because that's what's happening. So I'm really, really pleased and infused that we've managed to have this dialogue through the FAB. It's probably the first real indication that Wolves are taking the Fan Advisory Board seriously. They're sitting and listening to the fans. They've asked us for the data. They've had the data, and on the back of that, the club have put that announcement out. And every single point they put on there is absolutely right. It's not just about incorrect and corruption and all of this stuff. It's about people's enjoyment. It's about people not understanding what's going on, being disenfranchised with the game. I think we've got to. I'm not a big fan of our owners and the guy that is charged with running the club, but you have to you have to put your hands up in this instance and say that, yeah, they've taken on board what people have said, and they've put their head up above the parapet. They've done it in a respectful way. They haven't talked about legal action with ex-referees and groups and some of the other ways that people have tried to handle it. And I think we've done it in a proper demographic way. So I think it's a great indication of us being joined up as a club and supporters for once in a blue moon.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Chris. Chelsea, I'm going to go over to you now. You've obviously picked this up after work today. I had a chance to have a look at it, hear what's said. Obviously, there's been lots of noise around VAR, especially at Wolves over the last 2 seasons, really. We've talked about it many, many times on this channel. As a fan, what's your instant reaction to that?
As a fan, I'm proud that Wolves as a team and as a club has pushed it forward themselves. They're not waiting on other clubs to go with them. They've decided that they are the ones who are going to push this. And I think that's a good thing. And I think based on the evidence that we have this season of the game against Man United, the game against West Ham, when we talked about subjective VAR, we have clear, obvious errors that should not happen. And VAR was brought in without the consideration of fans. And I completely agree with Chris, the idea of ticket sales are important. People being able to afford to go is important. But people watch football for entertainment. They watch football because they're going to work during the week and they want something to look forward to and something to make them happy and excited. And when your enjoyment of a game is being ruined by something that none of us asked for, then we must consider it. And talking on the watch along throughout, all of us in the comments as we talk about VAR, and we've said, it's not enough having 1 or 2 people moaning about it. You have to make a stand as a club, and I think we're making the right choice. And even if it doesn't go the way we want, at least we were the first club to argue against it. And we stood up to VAR and we stood up to Premier League. The Premier League has come out in the last around hour or so and said it's going to stick by VAR and being very, very diplomatic in that it wants to promote it and make it better. But in not just the Wolves experience, everyone's experience, there's so many fans on here, on the watch along is also here now, who are Liverpool fans, Everton fans. These are people who are also agreeing with us. So it's not just small clubs who are unhappy with VAR, it's everyone. And I think if it's everyone that's upset and wants it to change, then this should be a momentous occasion for people to argue back. And even if it doesn't go through, at least the club is showing us what the problems are. But the fact that the fans weren't even considered in the decision making of bringing VAR in, fans also have the power to get rid of it. But it's whether the fans are willing to not watch the games, not go to the games, and force the Premier League to change. But it's whether people are willing to do that.
Great points. Suti, I'm going to come to you next. On your when you heard this breaking, how are you feeling about what's been said and obviously the action that Wolves have taken to at least put this discussion point right on the top of the national agenda in the run up to obviously the start of next season?
Well, first and foremost, like Chris, you'll know I'm not a great advocate of our owners and been a bit cheesed off of our club of late, but I have to applaud our club for this, Dave. Going back to 2019, the previous season that we were all up in arms because of the standard of officiating. And everybody that I knew was saying, well, we've got the technology. Other sports have got the technology for this. And a lot of people called for it, Dave. But then I think we all suddenly realised that our referees that were pretty substandard became even more passive because they'd got a tool behind them where they didn't have to make decisions on field. And for the last 2 years, Dave, I've actually considered what the role of a linesman is, because they don't do very much these days. They just wait. The referee, he does a bit, but he just waits. And And you know, and I know, as soon as they go to that screen, I think there's been 2 circumstances over the 4 or 5 years where they've gone to the screen and they've actually upheld their on-field decision. Now, we all know that they get analysed, and if they make too many mistakes, they drop down. So they'll get chucked out the Premier League for a few weeks, their money goes down, and they get dropped down. Now, with VAR, they've got this tool behind them where they can be passive and say, they've told me it's Stockley Park, 300 miles away, that is the right decision. So I'm just doing what they've told me. They can't be found to have done anything wrong, Dave. It is closed shop. It's time, I'm afraid, that it went. My only concern, Dave, is I think we need 14 of the 20 teams to get it kicked out. I don't think we'll get 14. And what repercussions will we get as a club from officials in the future? Because we've been on the end of some stinkers, Dave. Absolute stinkers.
We have, and I'll come back with my thoughts on that in a second. And Liam, I am going to come to you next. Ian Thomas stating that the fans have no power. The fans have a lot of power. If you look, if there's enough fans, doesn't matter what it is, change of management, owners have gone because of fan power. You look at the Super League, that was all stopped because of fan power. VAR, this is something that's been growing and growing. I've never been absolutely against VAR personally, but it's been turning, and lots of even moderate fans have been turning. And when they start singing it in the stadium at Molineux, and then the away fans are joining in with the same chant or clapping, you know that everyone's pretty much starting to get on the same page. So yeah, you say that there's no such thing as fan power, but we are the real power behind every club. The fans are, and if the fans decide on something and turn it against something, things change very, very, very quickly in football. Liam, do you want to come in on all of that and with your thoughts? I think you're a young man and you've never really been in favour of VAR anyway, have you?
Well, I think before this season, I definitely was. I was for VAR because I kind of had the general conception that if they got it right, I think it'd be right for the sport, and I still somewhat stand by that. But I think this season, like many others, it's completely turned me against VAR, and I think I've said it on the show before. I can accept human error, but when we're having to wait for people with the technology who get to watch it in replay in slow motion, etc., and they're still making the same mistakes, that's what grinds me. But I also think, as going to every Wolves home game, it's making the experience just a lot less boring. A lot more boring. And every time the VAR screen comes up, you're always left there thinking, "What's happening? What now?" Basically, and I think the fact that we're standing up against it. Listen, I don't think this is going to get rid of VAR. I think there's been too much money pumped into it. And I don't think this would be the thing that would get rid of VAR. I don't see VAR going anytime soon. But I do kind of think this is a little negotiator for the Premier League, as somebody's finally took a stand with a lot of power. And depending on how many people vote for this form, whatever it is, I think it'll be very interesting to see what pans out. If we do get the 14, I'll be very interested to see what the Premier League do, because I highly doubt they are going to get rid of it. But
they would, to be honest, mate. If 14 clubs vote to take it out, it's gone.
I know, but I'm pretty sure there's something that they have the final choice, and I think
the clubs are the final choice. They're the stakeholders. It's the clubs that are the stakeholders. There's any motion on the Premier League that gets put forward. If there is 14 that vote for a motion, it gets implemented. That's the democratic process. So that the clubs are the Premier League.
Yeah, so, and I think it'll be very interesting to see if we do get that 14, because you're already thinking there. Obviously, Wolves are going to vote against it. Forest are probably going to vote against it, and there's no team in that league that I feel like, without contribution from the fans, if they take their fans' views into it, then there's no team in that league, I think, that should be voting towards it. There's a lot of players that came out and said they're not advocates for it. So, again, it'll be very interesting if we do get that 14, what happens next? Because obviously the Premier League, there's a lot of money going into VAR. I really doubt they'd scrap it that easily. And I think that this is where it gets interesting, because it's also a little negotiator, because they're going to be thinking now, right, the clubs have came out, they've voiced their anger towards VAR. It could be something that kind of makes them make changes quicker and does all they can to improve it so the clubs are happy and it gets to VAR, that it's satisfactory for every club in the league. Again, like I said, I don't think this is going to be the moment that's going to get rid of VAR. I don't think it'll be that easy. But yeah, I'm happy it's our club, obviously, because obviously we've been on the wrong end of a lot of decisions this season, and I think not trying not to be biased, I think we've been worst off. But yeah, I'm happy that it's our club. I'm happy with the owners for doing this. But I just don't think it'll be enough, unfortunately, to actually get rid of VAR, which again is unfortunate.
Well, mate, I just want to come back on your point that you've made there, actually, because Liam, I think you make a very, very good point. Wolves have tabled this motion. They've done it in a very constructive, measured way. They've not pointed and said there's any corruption or anything like that. They have, as well as what Chris has said, they have outlined multiple points that is making the game less enjoyable for fans and for everyone, pretty much, you know, and turning fans away from wanting to go to football because of the experience, especially in the stadium. I also agree with you. It not necessarily means that it's going to get voted out next season, but what it is doing, it's making at that meeting, and it's making all the boards of every single football club have to have a conversation, have to listen, because you'll have all the other fans from all the other clubs that will be having an opinion from their perspective, from their clubs, and they will have to take on account the fans' views. Personally, I think this is a play to push forward better implementation, quicker and faster, and improve the experience of the fans, and to get concessions from the Premier League that's going to happen by making this making this a main agenda item to you know, Wolves to make a stand on it and actually take a lead on it as an established Premier League club. It doesn't mean that we're going to lose VAR for next season. That might happen. You don't know. But I think it's a gambit that they're playing to make sure that the goalposts are moved forward, and also to take into account, especially clubs who a lot of clubs that seem to be getting a lot of these decisions go against them, and there are certain clubs that maybe a little bit higher up in the league that certainly seem to get most of the decisions, that this playing field starts to get leveled out. Who wants to come in on that point?
Dave?
Yeah.
Just going back to the Qatar World Cup.
Yeah.
Now, I was in Qatar, as you know, and not one contentious decision with VAR. They had automated offsides.
Yeah.
5 seconds, bang, decision.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. The refereeing quality was absolutely outstanding. Now, obviously, at a World Cup, you have the best referees worldwide. Now, in the Premier League, I'm only going on last year's figures. VAR cost each home team £28,000 per game.
That's basically to implement the system on a match day.
Yeah. Now, a Premier League referee, I believe, shoot me down if I'm wrong here, gets a £38,000 retainer plus £1,000 roughly per game that they officiate.
Okay.
Now, you're going to laugh at me, you know. So they could officiate a game every weekend, couldn't they? So they could get 38 games in, no problem. So they're on roughly 80,000 a year plus expenses, because they won't pay for anything to and from grounds, hotels, and all that. So let's say they're on £90,000 a year. But not one of these referees, Dave, has ever kicked a football in anger. And it's okay learning the game out of a book, and they can tell you point 13.2 off page 27, the ruling, like that. But they've not played the game, Dave. So wouldn't it be better to have ex-players and pay them an even bigger salary? Because we're talking about the biggest, most lucrative league in the world by an absolute mile. Pay them a lot of money to come in, train them up. They wouldn't take much training, because let's be honest, the fundamental rules, what we all know, don't take long to pick up. You could train these ex-pros, as long as they don't get refereeing the team closest to their heart, because we know referees support certain teams as well. Then I'm pretty sure you'll get a better standard of refereeing and a better understanding of how the game goes if they're sent to the screen. Now, the referees at the moment are probably the worst top flight bunch of referees that I've ever seen. Now, surely, if the league is getting better and the standard of football is getting better, surely the standard of refereeing and officiating should be getting better, but it's not, and it's at the detriment of our game. And like Chris has said, and I'm chuffed that the Trust and the Fan Advisory Board have got on board with this, and the club have actually sat up and thought, we're going to have to do something here. They've got involved and it's got the ball rolling. Now, maybe it won't go away. Maybe they will dig their heels in somehow. But at worst, it has got to be improved to the point where it's not affecting your actual experience inside the ground. Because fundamentally, it's inside the ground that they're killing the game. Now, I watch Match of the Day religiously for year on year. I don't watch that anymore, Dave. I don't watch much football on TV now, to be honest, because all I know is I'm going to watch people analysing toenails offside. Is his backside offside? It's too, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just too forensic. And football was never about that, Dave. There's going to be mistakes, but you used to talk about those mistakes in the pub after the game. You didn't sit there for an extra 15 minutes at the end of every game with, playing extra time. It's getting boring, Dave. It's killing the game.
Well, it is. And on that point, I'm going to come to Chris now. This is obviously, my dad doesn't go on a rant. If any of you've missed it, this was a couple of weeks ago.
They might as well have VAR on the pitch, because the referees, they ain't got no guts about them. I mean, that was definitely a bloody goal for Wolves, and everybody thought in the stadium was excited that we scored a goal. VAR gets in, and that was it.
Is it ruining it for your dad?
Well, I don't feel like coming to the match no more, because it ain't football no more, David. I don't know what to say about it. It's upsetting a lot of people, and they also get rid of VAR because it's ridiculous. I'm absolutely disgusted, and I'm really fed up with football. I might not come again.
Yeah, that was my dad thinking, like, my dad's been coming since like the 50s, and I've never seen him like that. And it was obviously upset me quite a lot to see him feeling that way, because like it's, going to the game with my dad and having all of that is really special to me. And for him to be so upset coming out the game, and it's not the first time, but to that point, and him saying at that match, I don't feel like coming again, that he's not the only one. There are so many of our fan base, and not just our fans from every Premier League club that are disenchanted and disenfranchised with the way it especially is in the stadium, because you don't know what's going on. You're standing around, you're waiting, you're cheering, you're in the moment celebrating. You look at the Coventry in the FA Cup semi-final recently, the absolute joy that they had, and it was taken away by a thumbnail and, you know, after a 4-minute review. And that's happening. And even at away games and stuff, you just don't know whether to celebrate or not. And at the weekend, when we got the VAR decision, it was like we were all shocked. Chris, you know, back to you. Obviously, you've been involved with the trust on stuff like that. There is an argument, and a fair argument, I think, saying it's not necessarily the technology. And I think Sutty's put on this. We're going to go to Chelsea after you. It is the people that are implementing it, and the way it's being implemented. If they can find a way of improving it, you know, and making the experience better, what would you, if they weren't going to get rid of it, what would you like to see?
Well, there's a number of elements. There's a number of elements in and around that, isn't there? I mean, just before I get into that, on Saturday, I had a fella sit next to me who, believe it or not, was an ex-soldier, an ex-signalman from Germany, and he came over. A Wolves fan, came over, so he was sat next to the right bloke in me. We had a good old chat about all sorts of things, and he supported Arminia Bielefeld, but he comes to Wolves maybe 3 times a year. It was his first game this year that he'd been able to come to, because obviously it's hard getting tickets. And he sat there whilst we had the pause for VAR a couple of times, and he turned around to me and he said, I can see now why nobody likes it. He said, I think it's great on TV. I know I can see what's going on. They explain it to you. You see 3,000 clips, and I think, oh, yeah, it's really good. Yeah, but this is rubbish. He said, I don't know what's going on. He says, what's happening? They don't tell you anything. Is it like this every game? I went, yeah, this is what it's like. I said, and these ones on Saturday weren't too bad. We've had it 7, 8, 9 minutes thinking, oh, what's going on there? Why is, you know, so he said, yeah, he says, I don't like it. He said, now I've sat in the stadium. He says, I've only been to one match, and it's given him that. So it gave him that view. Back to what you're asking me.
I guess there's been a discussion from the trust board since this has gone out as well. Must have been.
Yeah, only that it's good that we've had those. I mean, we you know, we can't solve the problem with VAR overnight. For me, I think the ex-player thing is right. I think it should be a group of people. I don't think it should be officials. I think it should be experienced people. Maybe an ex-manager, maybe ex-players. 3 or 4 of them sat there and coming up with the decision. I think in its entirety, we've got problems with the capability of individuals. So, like Keith says, they're pretty poor. If you look at Keith Hackett and what he says on Twitter, he's got a good word to say about the standard of the officials nowadays. So you've got a training issue. You've got, but that, you know, if you create a system with VAR that has other people other than a more experienced referee that's telling you you've got it wrong and change your mind, or yeah, you've done it wrong there, they may actually learn more and develop as good referees. So I think there's elements of that. I think there's process issues. I think they're instigating reviews for things that they don't need to. They got, you know, I can see that about Europe, but look what happened with Bayern Munich last week. I mean, they had a really good goal disallowed in the semi-final because Elijah put his flag up. Whereas we know what they do is they let the play go on, and then, you know, and that was shocking. That one of theirs, you know, cost them a Champions League final place.
Is that a VAR problem, or was that a line
process? It's process and the way that we're allowing the game and the rules and the implementation of decision making in the game. because that's the issue. We've got the way that we implement decision making. We've got how we then make them decisions. It's too forensic, and we've got people without the wider game knowledge making them decisions, and we've got to improve all them three to make VAR work. And I actually think it's too far a challenge to overcome to get it right. And but I think that's what they're up against now. You know, how do they just start that all again? It's a massive.
I mean, to be fair, like the World Cup, the VAR and the way it was used, the semi-automated offsides in the World Cup and stuff was a lot better. Richard Hubbard's making a point here. I'm going to come to you next, Chelsea. VAR should be reviewed in real time from the same angle the refs saw it. Probably difficult to see from the same angle from the refs. But the one thing I do agree with you, if they can't make a decision in 30 seconds, it's not clear and obvious.
Yeah.
I agree. Maybe even like 45 seconds. You know, they have 45 seconds, and if they can't forensically see it in that sort of time frame, it's obviously not a clear and obvious error, is it? But what is happening is they're taking 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 minutes to overanalyze. That ain't clear and obvious. If you're having to do that, you go.
No, they're also looking. That, you know, they could be saying, "Oh, is he offside there?" No, he's not offside. But hang on, 15 passes ago, that guy tripped somebody over there in the corner. It's nothing related to the goal, but it's a free kick there. That's it. That's what they do.
Chelsea, you're laughing at that. I mean, come back there with what you.
I mean, obviously, I don't know, like repeat what Sutty said, but. Obviously, VAR is the machine, but you've got incompetency of referees. And in my lifetime, and I appreciate having been alive long enough to watch long times referees, the quality in the last 5 to 6 years has gone really low. And I think VAR has just allowed for quite weak referees to become even more complacent. And
such is nodding there.
Correct.
As well with VAR is, if I was the referee, I have trained my life to make decisions in a split moment. And I completely agree with the comment of, I've got to watch that in the moment. I've got to decide if it's offside. How is it fair to look at it 40 seconds slower? It's always going to look worse slow. It's always going to be more dramatic slow. It's not real time. And it's not how the fans are seeing it either. It's not right. But if I was a referee and I've trained my career and then someone down at that park is going to tell me I've made the wrong decision, you're actually undermining the referee. So why'd you have the referee in the first place?
You might as well just have a robot on there and just be all.
You might as well, because if their decisions are made, if they make an error, they're going to point them up straight away. And whenever I've seen a referee go to the camera, they've always changed their decision, because they don't want to look wrong to everybody else. And I've mentioned this before in other extra times. And I understand some football fans feel like it's going to change the culture of the enjoyment of football. But my argument is football's being ruined anyway. People aren't enjoying it. I don't enjoy watching football as much as I used to. I don't watch Match of the Day anymore because they're overanalyzing everything. It's not about the experience. It's about overanalyzing every little foot, every single thing offside. It's ridiculous. It's not enjoyable at all. If you are going to the game, you are going there to have a fun experience and you can deal with human error. Fans only asked for goal line technology. And when that came in, we were satisfied. This extra element of VAR has just made people who have watched football their whole lives, including especially with you, Dave, Sutty, and Chris, you're now questioning your knowledge of the game. You'll have to question every year what has changed, what is seen as a push, what is seen as offside. I remember mine was daylight, and now I'm like, oh, he's got an ankle offside. How boring.
It's not even boring. Is it a toenail? I know.
It's honestly, when I was watching, especially that Max Kilman one, when Chiré was allegedly subjectively offside for the goalkeeper, I was just like, where's he going to go then? Well, if it's me, I'll make sure I put a man in front of the goalkeeper every time then, so then it will always go my way.
That's yeah.
I don't think I question my knowledge. I maybe because I'm an obstinate bugger. I think I know anyway. But I can see when they're going to rule things out. I don't agree with it, and I just think it's a joke. But I just think, well, that's not offside, but they're going to give it. I can see that's how I get rationale it. I think
our understanding of football, the culture of the laws are starting to morph and change. And I think it's whether we accept that these are the new rules or we stick to what we were happy with before. But if you're going to have something that's scientific and that's forensic, then you're going to have to go to the minute detail. And that's why I think you should have a referee with a microphone so you can hear every conversation, what's going on. I know a lot of people said, oh, you'll hear swearing. Oh, it ruins the game. The game's been ruined anyway. I'd rather know.
You know what? The funny thing is, Chelsea, I know they've used this excuse about the swearing thing and all that. But, like, you go to a game, people swear, swearing and ranting all the way around you. So it's like that happens. That's part of it. We try not to swear here on the channel, but even I swear sometimes because you can't help it because it's just human nature, and it needs to be moved. If they ain't going to get rid of it, and I'm going to come to Liam. If they're not going to get rid of it, Liam, how would you like it to be improved from your point of view?
Well, going back on what you said about the ref, mic and the refs up, sorry, would you say you'd want that throughout the whole game or when a decision's happening like VAR?
I think possibly just on the VAR.
If it's just the VAR, then that I think I agree with that. If we can hear what's going on.
What did you say, Chelsea?
I would say I think it's an interesting conversation about when do we want to hear it, but I think that's when you get subjective again of what does a fan deserve to hear. Well, if I'm going to hear what you're saying, I want to hear everything. I want you to tell me why you're giving them a yellow card for committing a foul and not the other person. I think if you're going to commit to the refereeing, we all need to hear it. Because even if we're not happy with it, we can hear what they're saying, digest it and accept it and move on. If you're picking and choosing when you're going to hear the referee, I think that's going to cause some problems again.
I think if it's just VAR checks, I think that eliminates all the subjectivity because I think the VAR checks, that's what we're not happy with. It's not all the little moments that happen like the yellow cards. We don't care about that because, I mean, I'm speaking off behalf of myself. Obviously, I can't speak on behalf of you, but I think that's not the issue. It's VAR that we've got the issue with. If we implement the micing up and hearing what's going on at Stockley Park, I think that's a step in the right direction. I also think if they can somehow, some magical way, I don't know how, if they can make the VAR decisions 10 to 15 seconds, something like that, that's pretty quick. So if it's an offside, he's getting it, the final decision's happening as the celebrations are happening. So we can have that comfort in knowing that it's a goal.
I think the automated offside is part of which was used at the World Cup, which is the Premier League. I don't know why they didn't adopt it when they decided to stick with the bloody line rulers. Yeah. But in the World Cup, that did help improve and help the graphics, helped understand how it was offside better than a line. So
I also think clear and obvious. I think I've said it on the show before. I think that's the worst thing that's ever happened I think that's the worst part about VAR is when they've brought in clear and obvious. I think they're spending too much trying to be perfect, and we all accept nothing's perfect, nothing can be perfect, and they're trying to waste their time trying to achieve to be perfect. It's not going to happen. We know that, and I think that's where most of the frustration comes from. They're bringing in these new rules to make it better, but it's only making it worse. And I think again, clear and obvious. That's the issue. That's it. That's the full of the issue because it could be something for somebody else. It's so subjective. That's my issue. It's so subjective. And when you're looking at a decision like the United penalty today, I think someone picked up on it. You're questioning what you know about football. I had no clue if that was a penalty because of all of the new rules that have came into play. Personally, if it was like 5 years ago, I'd say it's a penalty all day long. But I think, again, with all the new rules that have come into play, I have no idea if that's a penalty. And I've never ever said that about any decision. And definitely since before VAR, I never had.
I haven't seen that back yet, so I'll have to watch it.
I think it was Gordon. I think Amrabat clips him and then Casemiro comes in and lays on one. But I don't know because it's like handballs. Handballs are so confusing for me. because it's hit his hand. It can hit somebody's hand, but because it's in a position that's like.
Well, you look at the penalty given against Wolves earlier in the season at Luton. Here, there's another one.
Yeah.
You know, Joe Gomez is stretching with his leg. His arm's going back. It hits his leg and goes up onto his arm.
But because his arm is.
But we had a rule for that. It was called ball to hand.
Yeah, that is
exactly, and he didn't. He took a deflection, and now it don't get given. Oh, it wasn't supposed to get given. That was another mistake because it didn't go directly onto his hand.
Yeah, I also want to pick up the fact how Sutty said ex-players as refs. I agree with that. I think it would work, but I highly doubt any players would want to do that because after a career, they've got a couple paths they can go down. They could be a manager, they could be a pundit, they could do whatever they want. They see how much abuse these refs get. I really doubt that they're out of all those options, they choose to train to be a ref when they know the amount of abuse they're going to get because they're going to get things wrong as well. That's going to happen. That's football.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point on that. But it doesn't necessarily need to be Premier League players who probably will have a pathway into punditry or other things, and they've earned a whole load of money. And it could be players that maybe just a little bit down the pyramid that want to stay in football, and that's the route that they could go in potentially.
But then how did they get it so right in these other competitions at the World Cup, Champions League? Why is it so much better?
I think Sutty hit the nail on the head. It's the quality of the officiating. 100%. The best.
Like you just said, though, Dave, obviously I'm not on about having David Beckham as a Premier League referee. He's worth £200 million or something like that. But a good standard League Two player, or even a good standard National League player, who probably never earned £30,000 a year. If all of a sudden you say to that man, we're going to give you 200 grand a year and we're going to train you and you're going to be a top flight official, they will snatch your hands off for 200 grand a year. Absolutely 100% they will. Because they're never, as a League Two player, there's very few League Two players who go to the top flight as a manager. They might get a coaching role. They'll probably end up coaching the kids. It's peanuts. You offer them 200 grand a year and you get a good standard of refereeing out of them. They'd be worth every penny. But what I wanted to say as well, Dave, is if they're going to carry on with this, I actually think if they send that referee to the screen and he says, what are you sending me for? Oh, offside. Okay, I'll go for a foul. Okay, let's have a look at a foul. So he goes and has a look at the foul. He can only look at that one thing. They must not be able to go back in time, as Chris said, and said, hang on a minute, 15 passes ago, there was another foul.
Completely different phases of play.
Yeah, you can't, you should not be able to do that. And everything they're looking at should be played out on that big screen in that stadium.
That would be brilliant. I think that'd be great.
Now, your only problem with that, Dave,
Manchester United and Liverpool.
Correct. They completely refuse to have big screens put up at their grounds. They refuse point blank. The two probably richest clubs within the league.
Ridiculous.
With
they can't even afford to have a roof that don't leak. They
should be made to have large screens put up in that stadium for replays of every problem that we come across in the game that the referee is trying to look at.
Yeah, I think that's their issue. Like they can deal with the teams that have big screens, just put it up for them. For United and Liverpool, obviously it's going to be different. It's like the FA Cup. If you're playing away to a team that's in the Premier League, you're going to have VAR. If you're playing a team that's a team at home who aren't in the Premier League, you're not going to have VAR. It's simple as that. I think that's why it's any team that has a big screen in the stadium, just put the replay on. I think Liverpool United, they can deal with that issue. That's their issue.
I think the Premier League should install a ruling that says they almost have a screen, and we should go back to doing something that we used to do in football. If somebody's ground is not up to the standard of the league that they are gained in, they should be removed out of the league.
Listen, coming in on that, Maidstone United this year in the conference was kicked out of the playoffs because their ground wasn't deemed to be up to standard. Luton would not have been able to compete in the Premier League if they hadn't made upgrade. Every team that gets promoted have to install like you're saying, the VAR stuff, all of these cameras, make sure that the broadcasting suites are up to this, that, and the other. And this is the double standards that you're up against. The two biggest clubs, supposedly, in you know, two of the biggest clubs in the world, Liverpool and Manchester United, haven't got a screen. Then that's their problem. They should be told, hey, you're worth millions, sort it out, get a screen installed. But they don't.
I can understand the reluctance of them having a TV in Liverpool, Dave.
You what?
I can understand the reluctance of them having a TV in Liverpool.
But don't forget they lost a camera angle as well at the FA Cup. Anyway, but I do agree.
Got over your head, that joke.
Yeah. Moving on. Anyway, listen, we're gonna round up now for the last 5 minutes. Obviously we've talked in depth, guys. Thanks for joining us on the chat. I know loads of you more will watch it on playback, and loads more of you will watch it and listen to it on the podcast. Just to summarise, if we go from top left to Sutty, Chelsea, Wolves have put this in. Obviously, there's going to be a discussion around it and vote. Your final thoughts?
I hope that it will be successful. I agree with Liam in that the amount of teams that benefit from VAR, I doubt that it will be changed. And I think the Premier League and the media and certain channels like Sky Sports will encourage people to support VAR. And I think they'll use that media stance to their advantage. But I do hope that by Wolves putting this forward, it makes VAR have to get better. And also, I do agree that VAR isn't the main issue. It's incompetency of referees. So until we solve the referees, we might need to consider, should we be using VAR? Because if the referees aren't up to standard, then the VAR is useless. We need to focus on putting funding into good referees and getting rid of, exactly what Liam said, clear and obvious errors, because that is causing the problem. It's becoming too forensic. We need to have it in real time playing, and we need high quality referees that can make the decision and don't need to rely on VAR.
Fantastic. Liam, your final thoughts?
Obviously, I'm happy that this is happening. Again, I've said it before. I doubt it's going to go anywhere, but I am happy that something's been said about from the clubs, because I think it's getting to the fans, because they're paying their hard-earned money to go to these stadiums, and the experience they're getting isn't up to standard, and it's the best league in the world, as many people call it. It's just nowhere near good enough. But yeah, I think everybody's really summed it up well. I think when you say it's the officiating and not the technology, I think obviously the technology could work if it was used right. I do think the officiating, it's very difficult to ref a game now, because you've got in your subconscious, you've got VAR to fall back on. And I think that's why we're seeing less and less referees actually give decisions on field. It's always going to VAR. It's because they know I don't have to give this, VAR can check it, and then it all gets in the loophole. Oh, is it clear and obvious? Is it not? And I think that's the issue. I think the officiating, because it's been good. It's been good, pretty good before VAR. It wasn't terrible. It was acceptable, because again, like I said, I can accept human error on the pitch. It's when the technology is being used and you're still getting that error. That's when the situation turns sour. But I think as long as VAR is here, the referees are going to ref the game knowing that VAR is going to back them up, which again might just influence their decision if there's a penalty or not. So I think that's the issue really, which is VAR. It's the concept of VAR that's the issue for the officiating, personally.
Thank you very much, Liam. Chris, final thoughts and anything that the Trust will be doing off the back of this that you think?
Well, I think the Trust will just, I think we probably put a statement out tonight saying we applaud the club and proud of what they've done, and we're right behind them. And it's good to have that communication with them and be listened to. I think for me, it's got to change now. If it gets voted for and it gets removed, great, because I don't like it. If it means that what we do is we have a root and branch review and it gets changed and it actually works, then that's good as well. I mean, for me, the referee is the person on the pitch that controls, brings honesty, integrity to the game, and makes sure that the game is run in a sporting manner and played. That's what a referee does. The one thing that, if I was to say, would ever make me blow my gasket of football, it's bad refereeing. That is the thing that sends me doolally more than ever. And I actually don't want to hear the referee speak in the stadium. I want them to tell us on the screen what's going on, but I don't want to listen to them, Dave, because I think that might be the thing that makes me do something that I don't want to do and proper lose it. And I don't think I could cope with watching a referee stand in the middle of the pitch and say, I've done that because of this. And I'm sat there with my own eyes going,
Would you want to hear the conversation with the VAR official, though, with the conversation that's going on? Because, like, as you say,
I'm a little bit torn.
How do you get clear transparency if you don't actually know what they're even looking at or what the communication is between the VAR and the referee? I
like it on the screen now when it says looking for a foul, but I know it's not as. I'm conflicted because I know if I start listening to a load of something on the speaker saying, "Oh, no, that's not happened," I'll be off on one. I know I will be. I won't be cheerful. I'll be somebody else.
Well, that's a rarity anyway.
Catastrophic or something. But no, so I get the whole thing. It's really conflicting. I think what I'm saying is I think it's best we get rid of it. I think.
Okay. And Sooty, final thoughts on this from yourself before we finish. And thanks for everyone that's joined us live.
I'll be really brief here, and I'm a big believer if you forgot the referees on the pitch, he's had a bloody good game.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they are the centre point on every game now, Dave. They are almost, I don't want to say the star of the show, but they are the person that everybody just waiting to hear off. And it's killing it, Dave. That's not football, Dave. It's just not football. So for me, I'm proud of the club for what they've done. I haven't said many good things about this club recently, but I am really proud of what they've done. And hopefully we get 14 other clubs that agree with us. And
we need 13.
13, to make 14. So I hope we get that. I'm very dubious we will get it. I don't think we will. But what would have been even better, Dave, is that they'd have got every club had to have a vote of members and season ticket holders. Then you wouldn't have VAR, Dave. Gone.
Exactly right.
Guaranteed. Gone.
Exactly right.
They won't do that, Dave. They won't do that.
No, I think most clubs have got a good idea. And if there is trust, obviously, I think there is trust of most, Premier League clubs that I'm sure that they'll be doing similar to what our trust have done and been, getting polls from their members. There'll be various channels and fan groups from every club that'll be talking about this. And I think the general consensus will be there. The ultimate thing, like you say, is when it comes down to it at the end. And I do think Wolves have, it's great that we've done this and we've put our head above the parapet and it's going to be a conversation. But I think this is probably a process to get this conversation talked about seriously and put it on an AGM and have discussions and to try and force the hand for the Premier League to come back and go, we don't want to get rid of it. We don't want to get rid of it. Stick with us. We're going to definitely make these improvements and this is what's coming and this is what we're going to do. And that's going to improve the fan experience. And that's probably where it will go, because it'll be surprising if it gets kicked out, but it might do. But I think it's definitely good that everyone's talking about it and that all the Premier League of clubs and boards have got, they can't just duck their head under the parapet and ignore this question. they've got to go to this AGM. They've got to talk about many subjects, and they've got to vote on this. So they've got to have discussions at boardroom level with the coaches, with the managers, take on board the fans, and then make a decision, and obviously come back with proposals to the Premier League to hopefully, if they're going to keep it, make it a better experience. Because let's face it, it can't go on like it is this year, because if it does, the game's gone. It's got to either go, or it's got to significantly improve, and it's got to significantly improve like from the start of next season, because we don't want to be having another conversation about this again next season. Guys, thanks ever so much for joining us. As I say, important subject. I think the general consensus from everyone here on the screen at the moment is, a thumbs up to Wolves for doing this. We'll see what happens and how it plays out. And obviously, make sure you do subscribe to the channel. If you've enjoyed the video and the discussion, please smash a like. And if you do subscribe, as I say, you get your Wolves content. Hit that bell notification. And we will also put this on the Always Wolves podcast in the morning for you, so you can listen to it as well. Or you can watch it on catch up on YouTube. Until the next one, from Chelsea, Liam, Chris, Sutty, and myself, always Wolves.
Always Wolves.